90% of people who walk near the Hollywood sign report the same thing. A sudden drop in temperature, the unexplained sweet scent of gardenias, and footsteps following behind them. But when they turn around, nobody's there. Just a white silhouette standing in the shadow of the letter H. Who is this woman? And why has she been waiting in the same spot for over 90 years? Today, I'm sharing Hollywood's oldest and most haunting urban legend with you. The story hidden beneath the world-famous Hollywood sign, a tale of shattered dreams, tragic love, and perhaps a story that even death couldn't end. This isn't just a ghost story. It's the story of an era, a city, and the darkness that lives in the human soul. The late 1920s, early 1930s, known as Hollywood's Golden Age. But beneath that gold lay shadows, where countless young lives darkened. Hollywood wasn't just drawing dreamers from America. They came from around the world. The transition from silent films to talkies offered huge opportunities for theater actors. Talented performers from Broadway were heading west to try their luck in this new medium. But the reality was far from glamorous. The studio system was ruthlessly controlling. 5 major studios, RKO Pictures, 20th Century Fox, Paramount Pictures, Warner Brothers, and Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer, completely controlled actors' lives. They could promise a bright future one day, then treat you like you never existed the next. And in early 1932, Peg Entwistle became one of this system's victims. February 5, 1908, Port Talbot, Wales. Born in a small coastal town, Millicent Lillian Entwistle would learn to fight for survival at a very young age. When she was barely 2, her mother Emily passed away. Her father Robert took little Millicent, whom the family called Peg, to New York. Robert had been hired as a stage manager by Broadway producer Charles Frohman. This was Peg's first step into the theater world. But fate wouldn't leave the Entwistle family in peace. In 1922, when Peg was just 14, her father Robert died in a hit-and-run accident in New York. The driver was never found, taking away the last pillar of support in the young girl's life. Peg and her siblings were placed with their Uncle Charles. Charles Entwistle managed a well-known Broadway actor and was deep in the theater world. Perhaps this is how Peg's talent was discovered so early. By age 17, Peg was performing on Broadway stages. Though her first roles were small, her talent was quickly recognized. Theater critics of the time praised her natural ability and stage presence. In 1925, she landed a small role in famous actress Ethel Barrymore's play. Then came her breakthrough performance in The Man from Toronto. Though the play only ran for 28 nights, it was enough to get Peg's name recognized. At 20, she met and fell in love with handsome actor Robert Keith. They married in 1927. But the marriage became a disappointment for Peg. She discovered Robert had been married before and had a 6-year-old son. This sense of betrayal triggered Peg's first major depression. During the divorce proceedings, Peg continued working on Broadway stages with stars like Dorothy Gish and Lorette Taylor. Her talent was undeniable. Even young Betty Davis would later confess that Peg inspired her to pursue acting. But the emptiness and restlessness inside Peg was growing. Though critics praised her talent, she felt she wasn't achieving the success she wanted. In a 1929 interview with the Oakland Tribune, she said, "I prefer playing roles that carry conviction. Maybe they're both the easiest and hardest things for me to do. To perform any emotional scene, I must work myself up to a certain level. If I can reach it with my first word, the rest takes care of itself." But if I fail, I have to build up the entire speech, and the whole characterization falls flat. These words clearly reflected the perfectionism and constant feelings of inadequacy in Peg's inner world. In late 1931, she decided to join the Theatre Guild's California tour. This decision would take her to Los Angeles. Spring 1932. Peg settled into a small bungalow on Beechwood Drive in Los Angeles with her Uncle Charles. Hollywood was rapidly changing. The transition from silent to talking pictures was complete, and a new era had begun. Peg's first impressions were quite positive. Compared to New York's cold and competitive atmosphere, Los Angeles felt warmer to her. The sunshine, palm trees, and the optimism you could feel everywhere. Everything seemed possible. In the first months, she continued taking roles in stage plays. Though Los Angeles theater stages weren't as prestigious as Broadway, they were good ways to catch the attention of film industry executives. And indeed, in early summer 1932, an unexpected phone call came. From RKO Pictures. They were offering her a role in the thriller 13 Women. The film starred major actress Irene Dunne and had a substantial budget. Peg's role wasn't small. She would play Hazel Clay Cousins and appear in important scenes. Peg was experiencing one of the happiest moments of her life. Finally, she would appear on the big screen and truly exist in Hollywood. But the film's subject matter was quite bold and challenging for that era. It dealt with psychological tension among a group of college students, featuring lesbian characters and suicide themes. In 1932, these topics were considered extremely risky for the silver screen. Filming was completed. Peg was satisfied with her performance. The other actors and director had given positive feedback. The film was set to be an important part of the company's fall 1932 program. But the test screenings were a disaster. August 1932. Peg was waiting for news from the studio after 13 Women test screenings. But the news that came was nothing like what she expected. The film had been harshly criticized by test audiences. Particularly the lesbian characters and suicide scenes were not accepted by conservative American viewers. Studio executives took immediate action. They decided to re-edit the film. In this re-editing, most of Peg's scenes were cut. Only a few minutes of her footage remained in the film. Worse yet, RKO Pictures terminated her contract, without even the courtesy of an explanation or advance notice. In one day, Peg had lost everything. Both her first big film chance and her future security. In that era's Hollywood, such situations were unfortunately considered normal. Studios could unilaterally cancel contracts with actors without having to pay any compensation. Actors had no legal protection. Peg's psychological state rapidly deteriorated. Uncle Charles noticed she was increasingly withdrawing, not eating, and staring out the window for hours. Their financial situation had also reached a critical level. Uncle Charles tried to support her, but he was also in financial difficulty. Peg continued applying for other roles but received no positive responses. In Hollywood, once you were branded as unsuccessful, it was nearly impossible to remove that stigma. In the first weeks of September, her depression peaked. She wouldn't leave the house for days and spoke to no one. Late at night, she would spray her gardenia perfume and stare at herself in the mirror for long periods, trying to remember her days on stage. September 16, 1932. Friday night. The last night of Peg's life. September 16, 1932. Friday evening. Los Angeles was unusually hot. Santa Ana winds were scorching the city, and tension could be felt in the air. Peg was quiet that day. Uncle Charles was worried about her condition, but hesitated to intervene. The young woman was already under enough pressure. She barely touched her dinner. She went to her room and remained silent for a long time. When Charles knocked on her door, he got the response, "I'm fine, just resting." Around 7:30 p.m., she came downstairs. She was wearing her best dress, white, elegant, in keeping with the fashion of the era. She had carefully combed her hair and applied light makeup. Most importantly, she had sprayed her favorite gardenia perfume. Approaching her uncle, she said, "I'm going to meet friends. We're meeting at the drugstore in Beechwood. I'll probably be back late." Charles was surprised. Peg hadn't been seeing anyone for a long time. What friends could these be? But perhaps it would be good for the young woman to socialize a bit. "Be careful," he said simply. "Don't wander the hills at this hour." Peg smiled. But that smile seemed strange to Charles, as if she was saying goodbye. Peg left the house and began walking along Beechwood Drive. But she wasn't heading toward the drugstore. She was heading in the opposite direction, toward the slopes of Mount Lee, alone in the darkness of night. At that time, the Hollywoodland sign was different from today's. Erected in 1923 as a real estate advertisement, it read, Hollywoodland. Each letter was 50 feet high, with maintenance ladders behind them. When Peg reached the sign after climbing the rocky slopes, she was out of breath. But she was determined. When she reached the base of the letter H, she stopped. The scent of her gardenia perfume drifted in the night wind. She carefully folded her coat and neatly placed it on the ground. She put her purse beside it. She took out a small piece of paper from her purse and wrote her final thoughts. "I am afraid. I am a coward. I am sorry for everything. If I had done this a long time ago, it would have saved a lot of pain. P.E." She placed the paper inside her purse and approached the maintenance ladder behind the letter H. Each step of the ladder felt very heavy to her. But she continued climbing. 50 feet high. All the lights of Los Angeles beneath her feet. When she reached the top of the ladder, she looked at the city one last time. Hollywood's glitter appeared to her like a graveyard of dreams. And she jumped forward. The next morning, she was found by a female hiker. Peg Entwistle, at age 24, was dead. But the cruelest irony would come later. September 18th, 1932, Monday. While Peg's funeral was being held in Los Angeles, a letter arrived at their house by mail. From the Beverly Hills Playhouse. The letter contained an offer for the lead role in a play where she would portray a woman who commits suicide. Fate had played one last cruel joke on Peg Entwistle. After her death, 13 Women was released to theaters. Critics didn't like the film, but they spoke favorably of Peg's brief performance. "Unfortunately, we won't see more," wrote the Los Angeles Times. But the truly strange events began in the early 1940s. First, the letter H from which Peg had jumped mysteriously collapsed. There was no natural disaster, storm, or structural problem. One morning, that large letter was simply found fallen to the ground. Then, strange reports started coming in. The first testimony came from a park worker in 1943. He reported seeing a woman in a white dress wandering around the sign during his night shift. When he approached, the woman vanished. Then came the others. Tourists who came to take photos began reporting that they felt unexplained coldness and strange smells. And that smell was always the same: gardenia. As years passed, paranormal activity reports around the Hollywood sign continued to increase. And these reports weren't just coming from random tourists. Park rangers' testimony. John Arbogast is one of Griffith Park's senior rangers. He's worked in the same area for decades and claims to have encountered Peg Entwistle. "The first time I saw her was in 1998, says Arbogast. "I was on night duty. It was a foggy night. I noticed someone walking near the sign. I thought they were illegally climbing, and I approached. But nobody was there." According to Arbogast, this experience repeated. "I've seen her clearly at least 5 times. Always the same, blonde, white dress, 1930s style clothing. And there's always that flower scent around." His most striking experience was in 2010. Motion sensor alarms started going off. The system showed someone standing 5 feet away from me, but there was nobody around me. All our electronic equipment went crazy that night. Joggers and hikers' experiences. Megan Santos describes her terrifying experience in March 2013. "I was jogging in the evening, following my usual route in Griffith Park. I suddenly stopped because I started sneezing. There was a very strong flower scent in the air. I later learned it was gardenia. According to Megan, a very strange feeling came over her, like someone was watching me. When I turned around, I saw a woman about 20 meters away. She had blonde hair and it seemed like she was walking in the air, not on the ground. The woman started coming toward me, but there was no footstep sound. I screamed in fear and started running. I ran to my car without looking back." Couples and groups testimony. In 1990, a young couple noticed their dog behaving abnormally while walking the Beechwood Canyon Trail. Sarah Wilson remembers that day. "Our dog Max suddenly started whining and trembling. He never behaved like that normally. While checking around us, we saw a woman walking toward us on the trail." Her husband Michael adds, "The woman was dressed very strangely, like she came from the 1930s. Since it was Hollywood, we thought she might be coming from a costume party. But as she got closer, we noticed she was making strange movements, like she was under the influence of drugs. We tried to say hello, but the woman didn't respond. Then, within a few seconds, she disappeared before our eyes. Literally vanished." The most famous testimony, the sci-fi paranormal witness incident. In 2010, 4 friends, Tina, Alan, Brian, and Al, decided to break out after a Dodgers game. Despite it being prohibited, they planned to climb the sign. Brian's account of the incident was later broadcast on Sci-Fi's Paranormal Witness program. "While we were coming down, I slipped and rolled down the slope. As I was climbing back to my friends, I saw someone walking toward me on the path." Brian's detailed account. "She wore a 1930s-style dress, high heels and a thin veil over her face. The strangest part was how she walked up that steep slope without any effort, like the ground was flat. I couldn't hear her footsteps, which surprised me. I tried to say hello, but the woman didn't respond. When I reached my friends, they said they hadn't seen anyone." When the group researched Peg Entwistle after returning home, they were horrified, because the woman Brian described exactly matched the dress Peg wore on her death day. Digital age testimonies. In 2019, a young couple taking Instagram photos found a strange sound recording on their phone. According to Emma, "We were taking selfies under the Hollywood sign. We took normal photos, didn't notice anything. But when I looked at the videos on my phone when we got home, I heard a strange sound. In the video recording, a woman's moaning could clearly be heard." Jake. "Nobody was around us at that moment. The sound was very clear. It was a woman's voice, like she was in pain. When they had the sound analyzed, it was determined that the sound wasn't manipulated, but the source couldn't be identified." Security guards' experiences. Security guard Marcus Rodriguez, who has worked around the Hollywood sign since 2015, admits he experiences strange events almost weekly. During night shifts, the same things happen constantly. The air suddenly gets cold, flower scents come, and motion sensors trigger, but you can't see anyone. Rodriguez's most striking experience was last year. Around 2 a.m., I saw something white moving on one of the cameras. When I zoomed in, it was a woman's silhouette. But when I went to that area, nobody was there. Over the years, many paranormal research groups have studied the Hollywood sign, and most of their findings are similar. Electronic equipment anomalies. In 2018, the Los Angeles Paranormal Society conducted a 48-hour investigation at the sign. They used various detection equipment and recording devices. Research leader Dr. Patricia Novak summarizes their findings. Electronic equipment constantly gave abnormal readings, especially under the letter H. Electromagnetic field values were very high. The most striking findings came from sound recordings. In our analysis, we detected a distinct woman's voice among background sounds. The words couldn't be fully understood, but the emotional tone was very clear: sadness and desperation. Thermal imaging analysis. In the same research, thermal cameras also produced interesting results. Research technician Tom Bradley. Between 1 to 3 a.m., the camera constantly detected cold areas under the letter H. These areas moved, like a human silhouette. Similar results were obtained in a study repeated by a different team in 2020. Experts interpret the Peg Entwistle phenomenon from different angles. Collective trauma theory. According to Dr. Amanda Chen from UCLA Psychology Department, Peg's ghost might be a reflection of Hollywood's collective subconscious guilt. From the 1930s to today, countless young talents have been disappointed in this city. Peg's story has become a symbol of these traumas. Those who see her might be facing their own fears. Local residents and cultural belief. Among Los Angeles locals, Peg Entwistle has become part of folklore. Especially older generation actors and crew members tell her story as a warning to young talents. Veteran producer George Martin says, "This city will chew you up and spit you out." Peg's story is the most painful example of this. Maybe the reason she still waits there is to make every hopeful young person see this truth. Today, the Hollywood sign welcomes approximately 10 million visitors annually. Most come just to take photos, but some come looking for Peg. Tour guide stories. Tour guide Maria Santos, who has been organizing Hollywood tours for 15 years. 80% of tourists are deeply affected after hearing Peg's story, especially young women. Some start crying. Maria observes an interesting detail. While telling the story, strange scents are sometimes felt in the air. Tourists notice this and ask, "Is that gardenia scent?" Park management's approach. Griffith Park Management is aware of this situation. Park Director Jennifer Hayes. Peg Entwistle's story is part of our park's history. We don't deny it, but security is our priority. Management has installed security systems to prevent especially nighttime climbing attempts. But Hayes admits these systems sometimes work unexpectedly. Sometimes we get alarms, but nobody is there. Echoes in the Hollywood industry. The Hollywood industry hasn't forgotten Peg's story either. In 2020, her story played a central role in Netflix's Hollywood series. Additionally, a musical called Goodnight September was staged in her memory in 2014. Famous actor James Franco said in a 2019 interview, "Peg Entwistle is a story every young actor should know. It's a reminder of how ruthless this city can be." Even after 94 years, Peg Entwistle's story is full of questions, awaiting answers. Is she really there? The fundamental question: is Peg Entwistle's spirit really still at the Hollywood sign? There's no scientific proof, but testimonies are very strong and consistent. Paranormal researcher Dr. Patricia Novak's assessment. So many different people having such similar experiences is statistically difficult to explain. Either there's collective hallucination, or there really is something unexplained. Why does she continue to stay there? If she really exists, why doesn't she leave? Experts propose different theories. 1. Unfinished business theory. She wants her story to be heard, not to be forgotten. 2. Guardian theory. She's trying to prevent others from suffering the same fate. 3. Emotional attachment theory. That place holds very strong emotional connections for her. The gardenia scent mystery. Almost all testimonies include the gardenia perfume scent. Is this just psychological suggestion, or a real paranormal manifestation? Interestingly, in Victorian times, gardenia flowers symbolized secret love and unrequited passion. Peg's love for Hollywood remained unrequited. Peg Entwistle perhaps found the fame she wanted in life after her death. But this fame isn't exactly the type she had dreamed of. Her story remains relevant today because the fundamental dynamics of Hollywood and the entertainment industry haven't changed. Millions of young people still come to this city chasing dreams. Most still face disappointment. The system still ruthlessly consumes them with a use and dispose mentality. Maybe Peg's ghost is the conscience of this ruthless cycle. A guardian spirit that appears every night in that white dress under the letter H, just trying to warn. So the questions are these. Is Peg Entwistle really still there? Each person will answer this question with their own experience. But the truly important question is, what have we learned from her story? That beneath Hollywood's glitter, countless tragedies lie hidden. How thin the line between success and failure can be. And sometimes, how vulnerable the human soul can become in the pursuit of dreams. Even 94 years later, every night gardenia scent is felt in the Hollywood Hills. Every night, motion sensors give unexplained alarms. And every night, possibly, a white-dressed silhouette still waits. What is she waiting for? Maybe, just not to be forgotten. For her story to continue being heard. And for future generations not to make the mistake she made. Have you heard this legend before? Share your thoughts in the comments. And under the urban legends umbrella, let's bring the immortal legends of the mortal world to light together. If you believe this urban legend deserves to be heard more, don't forget to like and share. Every legend gives us the opportunity to meet the soul of the city where it belongs. A new urban legend is coming soon. Until then, keep your heart open. Don't dismiss the ground you step on as just dirt. And remember, sometimes the greatest legends might be right beside you. Mortal world, immortal legends.